An infrared camera in a lowland area of the southern United States recorded a clip exactly 5 seconds long at 2 in the morning. That footage forced researchers to throw away every strategy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For the past 30 years, the government has used helicopters, satellite traps, and poison to deal with wild hogs, but failed miserably. The hog population has continued growing exponentially. Yet in certain ecological corridors, the data showed something irrational. Wild hogs were suddenly declining sharply at the piglet level without any human intervention. When experts reviewed the surveillance footage from that area, they said only one sentence before falling silent. Something out here is hunting them. Who is that hunter, and why does its appearance expose a billion-dollar mistake America is making? The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that there are now about 6 to 9 million wild hogs spread across 39 states. Texas alone contains up to 2.6 million of them, covering 253 out of 254 counties. The only exception is El Paso. Their existence goes far beyond the idea of an ordinary pest. This is an occupation. These animals destroy everything they pass through. A military airfield in central Texas once had to cancel its entire flight schedule after a hog herd rushed onto the runway at dawn, leaving behind a repair bill reaching 6 figures. In Irving, underground fiber optic infrastructure worth millions of dollars was dug up and destroyed. In Austin, residential drainage systems were heavily contaminated. A farmer in Williamson County lost 24 acres of corn in a single night, $40,000 US in total damage before sunrise. But crop damage is only a small part of the problem. The latest data show that wild hogs are becoming the most serious epidemiological threat to the commercial livestock industry. Their massive population carries dozens of pathogens, including E. coli, salmonella, and the risk of African swine fever outbreaks. If this pathogen spreads from wild hogs to industrial livestock farms, America's pork industry, worth tens of billions of dollars, could face collapse within only a few months. The destruction reaches $3 billion US every year, forcing the government to act. They opened the Treasury and launched the largest control campaign in history. However, physical strength is not the only reason these efforts became hopeless. The more terrifying factor lies in this animal's intelligence and ability to adapt. Over the past decade, the Department of Agriculture has spent more than $100 million US on eradication efforts. Helicopter sweeps across 400,000 acres cost $20,000 US before the first bullet even hit the ground. AI trap systems, thermal cameras, and night vision devices were all deployed. The result was always the same, completely insufficient. The biological equation of wild hogs is beyond the control of machines. One sow can give birth to 2 litters per year, with up to 12 piglets in each litter. If left unchecked, their population can double in less than 5 months. To keep the numbers from increasing, humans must remove at least 70% of all individuals every year. In reality, even the most advanced campaigns only reach the 30% threshold. Their reproductive speed is protected by adults with extraordinary physical ability. A wild hog can sprint at nearly 48 kilometers per hour. They leap over fences more than 1 meter high without slowing down. Their tusks grow longer than 15 centimeters. Their skin is more than 2.5 centimeters thick, reinforced by a hard cartilage layer that makes small-caliber rifle rounds ineffective. But their intelligence is what makes authorities desperate. Scientists once used the Judas pig method, attaching a GPS collar to one hog and releasing it back into the herd to track the location of the entire group. After only a short time, the herd detected the abnormality. They actively rejected and abandoned the collared hog, turning the expensive tracking system into a guide to one lonely individual. Dr. Sarah Vance, a biologist with the Department of Agriculture, described their behavior in words that silenced the entire room. The moment you miss the kill point, or the trap drops and fails, that hog remembers your position, your scent, and your method. It does not return to that place for an entire year. She emphasized one reality: you are not hunting these animals. They are studying you. Every traditional method is only temporary. Humans capture a few hundred animals, and the ones that escape produce thousands more before the next growing season. Yet, while high-tech systems kept failing, the government made an even worse decision, directly turning this crisis into an extreme disaster. When helicopters and traps reached a dead end, authorities turned to cash. In recent years, many southern states launched a broad bounty campaign. The government paid $75 for every coyote carcass delivered by hunters. Farmers strongly supported it. In their eyes, coyotes were nothing more than scavengers that often slipped into farms to steal poultry and lambs. Hunters collected thousands of those bounties. Large areas were cleared of coyotes. Only 3 years later, policymakers received a data set that left them frozen. In one county where coyote numbers had been reduced by more than 60% through the bounty program, the wild hog population immediately tripled. Crop damage increased by 40% in the very next season. It turned out that wildlife agencies were using taxpayer money to fund the elimination of the only biological force on Earth truly capable of controlling wild hogs. These programs were not bringing a solution, they were removing the solution. However, scientists still found it hard to believe. How could a small coyote, usually known for living alone and eating carrion, threaten wild hog herds with adults weighing hundreds of pounds, animals powerful enough to crush it in seconds? The answer lay hidden deep beneath the muddy soil of the Texas Hill Country. Dr. Michael Bodenchuk, an expert with 20 years of field experience, conducted a survey of the area. He stopped in front of a wild hog nest that had been completely emptied out. There were no human traces, no signs of a trap. The nest had been torn open by physical force. He studied the marks pressed into the soil, measured the spacing, and immediately called his regional director. He said only a few words: "You need to see this. Coyote tracks." These were not traces of scavenging. Tracking cameras placed around the area later recorded footage that shocked researchers. The clip, recorded at 2 in the morning, showed that coyotes were not hunting alone as they had for thousands of years. They moved through the brush in small groups of 3 to 4 individuals, applying an extremely strict tactical division of roles. The lead coyote lowered its body, ears level with the grass, and approached the hog nest from downwind. This was the key detail. Approaching from downwind ensured that the mother hog could not smell the danger. Behind it, 2 other coyotes spread out, moving into flanking positions to create a pincer formation. Coyotes knew clearly that they had no chance of surviving a direct confrontation with the mother hog. Instead, they created chaos and attacked the weakest point: when the mother hog left the nest to forage, or when one coyote acted as bait and slipped past to provoke her. The massive, furious mother hog turned in circles, trying to identify the direction of the threat. Right at the moment the mother hog turned her back on the nest, the supporting coyotes rushed out from the darkness. One single, decisive bite to the back of the piglet's neck. The prey collapsed instantly and was dragged straight into the forest edge before the mother hog could complete her turn. The measured time from the footage, the entire process, from the rush to the disappearance, took less than 5 seconds. Dr. Bodenchuk replayed the footage frame by frame. The downwind approach, positioning, calculation of the moment when the mother hog was distracted, and the fatal strike. This was not basic feeding instinct. This was high-level tactical coordination, a behavior never recorded in any field document about this species before 2010. And the frightening power of nature did not stop there. These predators were continuously upgrading their operating system. Camera stations in other areas began sending back similar data. The change was not only in formation. Most coyotes hunt at night, but in corridors with high wild hog density, they collectively shifted their activity time to dawn. Why dawn? That is when the mother hog is most physically drained after a long night of activity, rooting, and searching for food. Her reflexes and alertness reach their lowest point. Coyotes discovered this exhaustion window and deliberately exploited it. Researchers were forced to face a confusing truth. They had to use a concept that is often considered taboo when evaluating non-primate species planning. The coyote packs did not communicate directly with one another across vast geographic distances, but they independently discovered the same formula. Through repeated experience, they learned that going downwind, timing the attack at dawn, and dividing roles equals 100% hunting success. This behavior brought such a major advantage that it became the default approach. Although cameras provided visual evidence, scientists needed undeniable clinical data. They set up research stations to collect direct samples. The results finally silenced every skeptical voice. Researchers at Fort Hood captured and performed necropsies on a series of coyotes in the area. Dr. Justin French, who led the examination team, described the moment the first reports appeared. The entire laboratory fell silent. Nearly 1/3 of the tested coyotes contained undigested piglet tissue in their stomachs. This was fresh meat from active hunts, not food from animals that had died naturally, as previously assumed. Comparative data from Georgia further strengthened this truth. Authorities found piglet DNA in more than 30% of coyote scat samples collected across the entire state. This was not an isolated or lucky event. This was a systematic biological purge operating on a federal scale without costing a single dollar of budget. This mechanism works precisely at the blind spot, where every human machine fails. It cuts off the reproductive chain. While artificial campaigns drain budgets by focusing only on adults, coyotes address the root of the problem by continuously controlling the next generation of piglets every night. The presence of coyotes immediately changed the data charts. In many regions of Oklahoma and Georgia, where coyote populations were left undisturbed, wild hog numbers dropped by 20%. In East Texas, more than 30% of piglets disappeared during each breeding season, and the entire decline zone matched with absolute precision the high-density distribution map of coyotes. No smart trap was needed. No helicopters circled overhead. Not a single bullet was fired. The wild hog population declined in a way that hundreds of millions of government dollars had never achieved. The 30-year lesson, costing $3 billion US dollars every year, has finally reached the legal system. Today, many states have begun adjusting policy. They are implementing coordinated management strategies, officially placing the protection of coyote populations on the priority list for the first time in areas with high wild hog density. In reality, this data strongly resembles Australia's ecological management lesson. When the Australian government established the dingo fence and removed wild dogs to protect livestock, it indirectly allowed wild rabbit and red fox populations to surge, causing serious imbalance in the native ecosystem. America nearly repeated the same scenario if it had not recognized the problem in time. This policy shift was not loudly announced in the media. It was simply managers quietly stopping the very action that was making everything worse. The operation of complex ecosystems has proven a harsh truth. Advanced technology and massive budgets cannot replace nature's law of self-balance. Instead of continuing to intervene deeply and disrupt ecosystems, sometimes the most effective management decision is to take one step back and let the natural environment restore its original state. Has the area or country where you live ever applied similar ecological intervention policies? Share your perspective in the comments. If you are interested in scientific topics and mysteries of the natural world, hit the subscribe button to follow the next documentaries. Thank you, and see you again.